You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about cracking open a cold one with the boys. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And joining us for this episode is Dr. Erin Macdonald.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk Mass Effect.
We're very excited to have you. I, Erin, am struggling to remember how we met. I'm assuming it's through Twitch. I feel like it was through Cypher of Tyr, maybe?
It was.
Okay,
I think
that's what I thought.
had just either she rated my stream or I had just finished a Mass Effect stream, and so that's how it came up, and then Cypher was like, oh my god, you guys should talk.
Yeah. And like I remember DMing you, and I was like, so I have this Mass Effect podcast. You're like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. Let's do it.
Shut up and take my money.
Which is very exciting. So I'm really excited to have you on for a lot of reasons. You do a lot of content online, but you are also a actual bona fide doctor, a person of science, and that's really exciting because I think that's a first for us on the show. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks. So I do have a PhD in astrophysics. I did my doctorate and some research with the LIGO Scientific Collaboration. That's how long it's been. And from there, I left academia, started getting into education, started getting into doing some technical advising, and I currently work and live in Los Angeles as a science advisor for the Star Trek franchise. So that's a dream job.
That's amazing. Is it for Discovery specifically, or?
No, so it started out as Discovery, and then they actually contracted me to work on all their shows. So I work for the franchise as a whole, and then whatever shows want to use me, they can. And so it's pretty exciting for me. The first season I worked on just finished airing, season 3 of Discovery. So it's a big deal
amazing.
for me.
That season was
That's
phenomenal.
Really cool.
I will not take up all our time gushing about Discovery, but my spouse and I love it. We love the characters. We love the show. And for me, I'm an old school Doug Jones fan. To see him get to be in creature makeup, but be like a lead on a show in creature makeup is just...
It's freaking phenomenal. Yeah, he's so good. So yeah, I will not derail us because I too could talk about it for a long time.
But I do have other podcasts that cover both TV and movies, so we'll have to talk then.
There we go.
But that's really cool. That's really awesome. And then you Twitch stream and you have a YouTube series that you talk about different nerdy relations to science and stuff, right?
Yeah, and this kind of came from me going to sci-fi conventions. That's kind of how I got my start doing this stuff, because I used to go to Dragon Con, and then when I stopped teaching, when I left academia, I really, really missed teaching. And so I found that these science conventions were a great place to talk about the intersection of science fiction with science and use that science fiction to teach really complicated science topics. And so I started doing that at Dragon Con, and then I started going to a few other conventions. And then that just took off to the point that I started a YouTube channel, and then I got my Twitch channel. And there's a lot of content on there now. Now, since I'm pretty busy working for Star Trek and writing, I don't post as much content. I mean, it obviously lives there for now, but I just love being online and streaming video games and answering questions about science as much as I can. That's
amazing. I love it. Well, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
You don't know how excited I am to just talk about Mass Effect. I don't get to do this enough. So, thank you so much.
Speaking of Mass Effect, the reason we are here, can you talk to us a little bit about what your experience has been like with Mass Effect?
Yeah, I didn't really grow up a lot playing video games. It wasn't until I was a little bit older, and then I started getting into Star Trek, and I had a friend who was just like, oh my god, you need to play Mass Effect if you like Star Trek and you like RPGs. I mean, the last RPG I played was KOTOR, so that was the big sell, was nice. Hey, it's BioWare, it's, you choose your own adventure type, single player. I don't like strangers on the internet, so at least I didn't used to. Now, obviously, that's where I hang out, but yeah.
So say we all.
Exactly. And so I tried playing Mass Effect, but it had been so long since I played video games that, honestly, the Mako killed me a lot. And
I am an expert video game player. Well, that's not true. I'm an average video game player, and I
was about to say.
I, too, struggle with the Mako, and was just yelling on another podcast last weekend that's not going to come out for a little while about how everyone who liked the Mako is wrong. I'm sorry.
There's an element of you belong in the, chaotic evil quadrant if you're a Mako fan. But I mean, to the point that I rage quit the game. And then I was like, no, okay, just play it on easy, just because I think too I used to be a completionist, and then obviously there were a lot more open world games, and so I felt a little overwhelmed by it, by having to drive around every single planet and get every single thing. And then I went into it just kind of going like, no, chill out. Like, you don't have to be a completionist. Just do what you need, get the story through. And then obviously when they changed the mechanics for Mass Effect 2, like I was in, and to a pretty crazy degree. And so I played them all, myself, but then actually where I went back to it after then going on and playing a lot of other games, I actually circled back to Mass Effect and played through again because I was doing these Science of Sci-Fi talks. And I got, for the video game track at Dragon Con, they proposed, they asked us to do a Science of Mass Effect. And so I ended up coming and replaying the whole series and realizing how much good science there is. And so where I was kind of already obsessed, like that took it to a whole new level, to this whole new level.
That's awesome. Really quick then, before we move on to the next section, just very broadly, is Mass Effect's science accurate for the most part?
Yeah, they actually, when it comes to science fiction science, I think they're some of the best. This whole concept of the mass effect, that you can run a current through this fictional element that channels dark energy, that simulates an increase or decrease in mass, which is what powers all the FTL drives, which is what powers artificial gravity. Like, it's solid. In terms of world building, it's so well thought out. And obviously they take a lot of liberties, but that driving background concept is just really, really solid. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. I love that. It makes me so happy. I mean, I don't need it to make sense. I like my fair share of nonsense as well, but that's always really exciting. Well, let's talk a little bit about the kind of Mass Effect player you are then. We have a list of choices we wrote out, and of course, we're going to talk about leading up to Mass Effect 3 since it's your first time on the show, and we always start here. Are you a Paragon or are you a Renegade? Do you lean more one or the other?
I am so Paragon. I'm Paragon to a fault. I think
you're amongst good company.
Good. I mean, it's like, I think I tried a playthrough once as Renegade, and I just didn't like how all my teammates were turning out. I was like, they're mean. And so I quit and played Paragon again. I can't. Although, we all have those certain Renegade jump options that we can't press the button fast enough. So,
is there a specific one in mind?
There's a certain news reporter. There's a certain quick assassination that you can do, but that's kind of ahead of where you guys are at right now. But you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about the Rachni Queen? Does she survive her encounter with you?
Yes, I have always saved the Rachni Queen. There's some of these choices I have not felt as strongly about, but certainly the way they introduced the Rachni Queen and that whole storyline, I just feel is so solid that, I think it's just, I don't have any other option. I always save the Rachni Queen.
No to genocide. Got it. Great. Good to know.
Yeah. That's the most concise way of putting it. Yeah.
We pass on that war crime.
Right, exactly. Others, who knows? The night is young. But that one, not going to do it. What about the Vermeer survivor? Who is your ideal Vermeer survivor, Ashley or Kaidan?
Oh, see, this is a funny one. So I in the last few playthroughs, I have saved Kaidan and let Ashley die. But that hasn't always been the case. I think it was as I played the game more and paid attention more to the dialogue. Because sometimes I'll go through with those quad mates that I'm not necessarily as invested in. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I actually listened to Ashley a couple times, and I was like, wow, she's an interesting character. So I started killing her. I also, though, I will kill Kaidan if I have been ninja-manced, which I think is the best term for accidentally ending up in a romance with someone, which is really easy to happen. So if I've accidentally gone too far with Kaidan, then he doesn't make it on Vermeer.
He's got to go. He's
got to go. Yeah.
What about the Council? Do you sacrifice Alliance lives to save them, or do you hold back?
So I kill the Council. This is another one. Yeah, this is another one that I've played both ways a couple times. And I don't feel super strong about it just because they kind of take you back to the same storyline a little bit regardless.
Yeah.
I do feel, I mean, they give you a good reaming after you kill them, though. Like, you do, I get kind of told off for my attitude. And I'm like, you guys, but, like, that wasn't the point. You know? They're like, whatever.
It wasn't for spite.
Yes, exactly. So if I can just kind of overcome that little amount of shame that I feel going into Mass Effect 2, then, yeah, I kill the Council. I just think it's an interesting story, you know, to do that.
Okay, well, now, with the council, who do you put on the council? Anderson, Udina, or do you not choose? Do you let them just decide for you, which is also Udina?
Yeah, Anderson. That's it. That's another no-brainer. We go for Space Dad all the way.
Yes. Yes.
You don't get to say yes.
Look, I didn't want to get involved in politics, but it's been a rough few
You stood
years.
idly by.
Yes. Look, I even as Shepard now, as Matt Shepard, I have aged in the decade that was 2020, and I would not stand idly by in politics ever again. I promise you. Never again.
And Udina is a piece of work. Like, he doesn't really
No.
make it easy.
That's true.
All right. What happens with Rex? Do you end up having to kill him? Do you make that friendship stick?
I make that friendship stick. Rex is one of my squad, like my default squad. So I'm very close to him. Not to mention, I think not just because I love Rex as a character, but I love the ambient dialogue that you get between Rex and Garrus as they go on missions together, where they give each other a hard time about their various species, like for good reason. And then, but start to kind of develop this in my mind. I don't know if this is headcanon. This is legitimately how it works in the game, but like they're friends, they're bros. And so I'm really close to Rex, so I always save him. And I do there are a few of these where it's like I get so stressed out when it gets to that point that I have like 30 save files and I'm just like, oh my God, please don't make the wrong choice. And Rex surviving and being a friend is definitely high on that list.
I mean, that's fair with Mass Effect 1's terrible autosave. Oh my God, I just realized with the Legendary Edition, I'm so excited for a great many things, but the fact that the autosave will definitely be better is like so high on that list now.
Yes. I have learned many a lesson from that.
Shifting towards Mass Effect 2 now, one of my favorite choices to ask about, because I feel like everyone's got a reason, is with the Geth in the second game. Do you kill or do you rewrite them?
This is, I agree. I think that this is kind of one of the more profound choices that you make, and because they present you with legitimate arguments on both sides. And I think and especially if you're close to Tali, but the events that you go through kind of with Tali's loyalty mission and learning more about the Quarians and their attitudes, I rewrite the Geth, but I make sure Tali and I are solid before I do that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Just because I think, they do present you with a lot of philosophical arguments, and those are, I think, the best choices for me is when I do legitimately sit in front of the screen with my head in my hands, trying to ponder like life decisions, and I'm like, God, what do I do? And then obviously regretting that I didn't make a save file sooner, and picking one, being like, okay. But I think, I've been happy with the story with rewriting the Geth, so I've gone with that since I did that.
What about the collector base? Is there any merit in saving it for the elusive man?
Nope. Evil President Bartlett can suck it.
We have a saying on this podcast, and it's very succinct. It's, fuck the elusive man.
Fuck the elusive man. I can get behind that. Yeah, I have never seen, personally, I've never saved it just because I can't see myself or my character doing that. But, no.
I've only done it in intentional Renegade playthroughs. I've done it. Like when I'm just like, I'm going to choose these options. But even if I'm doing a Renegade playthrough where I'm kind of just trying to feel it out, that's a choice that I never make because, again, fuck the elusive man.
Right. What a dick, man.
I have made it once before because I was doing an intentionally Renegade playthrough. And afterwards, everyone says to you, like, that was a bad call. And I'm just like,
I know.
I mean, yeah, but you guys don't get to tell me that.
That is so funny. Yeah. Oh, bless those extra saves, man. Just be like the what if option.
Right.
Just everyone being like weak.
Like, what
Rude,
the hell?
First of all,
So good.
I have saved many of your lives.
But not only that, like it is so satisfying at the end when you do destroy it and then you cut the message. You're like, yeah, screw you, man. I'm out.
Yeah.
Peace. Like, be gone.
My favorite person to bring on that mission is Miranda, because she also is just like, fuck that guy at that point. And I'm like, yeah, all right.
Awesome.
Let's talk romance. So Mass Effect 1, who is your ideal romance, if you have one?
I do not have one. I've done, so again, ninja mancing is my favorite term for Mass Effect. I was ninja manced by Kaden the very first time I ever played it. Not a huge fan. It just happens so fast. And then you end up in a romance and you're like, what the hell? And I was just trying to be nice to you. And then I legitimately went with Liara. So that was like the first one where I rage quit because of the Mako. Then the second time I played it all the way to the end, I went with Liara, then rolled into that in through the rest of the playthrough. But then, I mean, this is leading into the Mass Effect 2 romance. Then I realized how deeply my feelings were for Garrus, and I regretted my relationship with Liara and couldn't go for it anymore, so I started a playthrough from the beginning, and very consciously since then have never, ever, ever romanced anyone. There's a beautiful picture of Garrus in the screen.
Yeah, the listeners can't see it, but it was mostly for Erin.
Yeah, thank you. I needed that. He's when I realized that he had gone from my space bro to my space boyfriend, I was like, well, now I gotta start over again and ignore Liara. And yeah, so right now when I play through, no one in Mass Effect 1 and Garrus all the way. Just no other option for me.
Yeah, I mean, you've made a friend in my co-host just with that alone. I mean, for me,
I love him so much.
For me, like, it's funny because Garrus has always been like my favorite dude, bro. Like, we're gonna talk about a scene on the Citadel today that like is great when you're in a romance, but it's really great even when you're not. And like, I love that about Garrus. That said, if I could romance him as male Shepard, I probably would. But the male. I've yelled about this forever, and BioWare, I want you to make it happen. I want Thane. Why is Thane not a queer option? Because he is sweet to everybody. I'm going to yell about it every episode. Just want it. We just lost him.
We have talked about Thane through the female gaze.
Yeah. Absolutely. Come on, that first shot of him like turning around in the coat when in the second game, like it's just, it's all female gaze all the time. He's a babe.
Thane is one of those that it's like, I don't personally get it, but I can see it. And it certainly is like a queer option I think would be perfect. So I do agree with you on that, even though nothing is going to tear me away from my alien space boyfriend to whom I have pledged my life.
It's true.
All right. Well, that was great. That was excellent. Let's move on into the summary and talk about what we're doing here today.
All right, we are stopping back at the Citadel to follow up on some missions that opened up after the attempted coup. We have to... Oh, I just had to say attempted coup out loud.
Yeah, it feels different now, doesn't it?
There was like a rock that just hit my stomach. Yeah. Thanks.
It's been a rough couple of days. All right. So after the attempted coup, we have to track down a Volus ambassador suspected of helping Cerberus, talk to a Batarian terrorist who was severely wounded during the coup, and figure out who is using Batarian access codes to sabotage Alliance ships and refugee camps, and meet up with our friends along the way.
I forgot how much there was to do on the Citadel for this section of the game. Like, once I started doing it, I was like, I even messaged MJ. I was like, I'm doing all these things, right? And she's like, yeah. It's like, okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Pretty much anything you had at the Citadel, just do it, because we don't have any future episodes talking about the Citadel.
Right. Until the major Citadel DLC, which I have not played yet. Yes. So just for the listeners know, but for Erin, I abandoned the game after 2 playthroughs, Mass Effect 3. I liked it, but I didn't stay with it. And so I played Omega, but I never played Leviathan or Shore Leave. And so once MJ found out, she's like, well, now you can't. You have to play Shore Leave for the podcast because I need your reactions. Same thing with Andromeda. I never played it. I chose Breath of the Wild because they both came out at the same time, and then I never went back. And so MJ is like, well, now you can't play it until we cover it for the podcast. I need those genuine reactions. So that's where we're at.
I like how you roll, MJ. I get
it. And now that you know and you're in the know, you can take part in the betting pool for who Matt is going to romance in Andromeda.
Oh, yeah, I've got opinions.
We'll invite you to the Discord after the call.
Thank you. Good.
But before we get into the mission, Erin, why did you choose this mission? You had a variety of options to choose from, and you picked this one, so I'd love to know why.
I did, and I mean, you kind of just said it, that there's so much to do on the Citadel, and I legitimately love doing side quests on the Citadel. Like, even though the story is great, and some of the, story points are awesome, some of the main missions are fabulous, I just get giddy when I have, 20 Citadel side quests and nothing else to do. I'm like, this is where I want to live all day. Let me just run around and do all these little things and make people like me and make little minor and consequential decisions. And a lot of these, that kind of the main ones with Batarian and Volus, even though they are small, I mean, the Batarian one's like a minute or 2 minutes, it still has always stuck with me. It's actually always stuck with me. And so that's where I think they're really good. And I just think that one of the best things about the Mass Effect franchise is that they really consciously, for the most part, big asterisks next to what I say, but they really figured out what worked and what didn't as the trilogy developed. And I think those side quests, the atmosphere, the ambiance of running around the Citadel, the conversations you overhear, the people you meet along the way, those are some of the highlights for me. And so I love it.
There's some really good conversations happening on the Citadel. There is a Solarian and human talking outside Purgatory, and I'm like, oh my god, she's in love with him.
He doesn't even know.
She loves him so much. I'm like, oh god, I want you both to be my friends so I can set you up like I set up my friends Joker and Edie.
Exactly. We have become the matchmaker of the galaxy, and no one appreciates it.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Before we get to the Citadel, though, MJ and I have some check-ins on the ship to talk about. And actually the one I want to start with is, even before we go to Joker in the cockpit, is I want to talk about...
Taking charge.
I am. I want to talk about Garrus and James Vega broing out in the cafeteria.
I will allow you to go out of order because you're so excited about it.
I love these kinds of conversations in Mass Effect 3 because, as we've said before, Mass Effect 3 has the best ambiance on the ship and on the Citadel. It feels like a living world even when Shepard's not there. And what I love about this conversation is they're comparing, missions, successes, and,
Yeah, that's what they're comparing.
Well, yes. They're essentially comparing spaceship sizes. And what I appreciate about the conversation is that it happens... For me, at least, it happened in 2 parts. I left it and then came back. 3 parts, rather. That's what I meant. And the fact that they segment it to every time you walk by, they took a break, or they just kept talking and you hear that portion. My favorite one is when Garrus talks about stopping Saren and saving the galaxy. And James is like, that doesn't count. You were with Shepard. And just
Speaking of that one, so James says that doesn't count. You were with Shepard. And Garrus says, you're right. I was with Shepard from the beginning. And I'm like, that has real stop flirting with my girlfriend energy.
That's really good. I didn't even think of that. That's really good.
I'm pretty sure he says it no matter.
He does. He said it for me too. Yeah.
But from my perspective as FemShep, and having a relationship with him and knowing that James constantly is like, hey Lola, what's up?
Yeah, all bark, no bite, as it were.
Yeah, which is proven even further later.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm just like, are you okay? Do we need to have a talk?
Well, can I just insert something? I know you guys are doing podcasts on here, but I think for people like us who love the Garrus FemShep romance, It's so powerful when they insert things that make it, because you don't get to romance him in Mass Effect 1, when there are little hints that he kind of liked you since the beginning, you're like, yes, see?
Yes! Oh, I talked about this in Mass Effect 1. He was part of my final battle squad, and he comes out of the wreckage, and the way that he turns and looks up at you, I was like, that is a face full of love. Like, that face is in love with me.
Exactly. So good.
I have so many feelings.
Me too.
I have to quote my husband about this conversation, because as I was leaving the conversation, it had wrapped up. We were talking about how so fucking cute and stupid the two of them are. Uh-huh. And John said, just two bros sitting in a hot tub, 5 feet apart, so no one thinks that they're gay. And that is also the energy that they had.
That's true. I mean, especially James Vega, who, like, is a flirt, period. But you can only call him on it as femshep. Like he is someone who I think is definitely, I'm a bro, but maybe I'm gay. But they don't explore that. He's hands down a himbo. Like, one of the other
space bisexual.
But yeah, no, I love that moment. I love the different stories they keep saying. Like, yeah, it's just great. And then what I like is because it's in the center of everything. Like, you have to walk by it multiple times. If you go to Chakwas, it continues. If you go to Liara, it continues. Like, I love that dynamic, that certain, like, leaving and coming back triggers it to have a bunch of different things said.
Speaking of Liara, did you have a conversation with Liara?
No, I think she talked about a concern that I can't even remember now, and then that was it. Like, I didn't have a lengthy conversation with her.
I walked in, she was talking to Glyph, but she wasn't in her room.
Oh, no.
Like, her voice was so far away when I walked in, but I could hear it, and I was just, like, looking around her room. I was just like, where are you?
That must have been a glitch.
Where did you go?
Because she was there for me.
I have no idea what was going on. And I meant to go back, but then I forgot because I got distracted by the boys talking again. There was a conversation between the two privates that guard the passageway to the war room. Mm-hmm. One of the privates says, if you have to deny the action, it was a crappy action, because they're talking about how Cerberus started off as a black ops for the Alliance, and it splintered off and became its own pro-human organization. And nobody is, like, laying claim to it as a result. And that's because they knew that it was wrong when they did it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now Cerberus is continuing to be the worst.
That's true.
And then we have the elusive man can't pretend he's fighting for humanity from Joker.
Yep.
And Edie, who basically says to you, I am a fully realized creation, and you are a fucking Pop-Tart to my face.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Because I ask her, like, what's on her mind, and she gives me this whole existential, philosophical, like, answer. Why? What were you thinking about?
It's just like... And especially Mark Meer. Like, I love both voice actors, and, like, I have a very soft spot for Jennifer Hale, who I've loved beyond Mass Effect. I learned to appreciate Mark Meer even more through this playthrough, because I tend to play as Femshep more. I just like that version of the character more. I just always have. But Mark Meer's delivery in moments of, like, shit, like, I'm what? Like, his being baffled or feeling dumb moments are so good, or so well delivered. And this one was like I also, sitting here, was just like, damn, Edie, why? What are you...
Well, I was wondering how my shiny friend was doing, but now I'm just gonna go fuck myself. How about that?
Yeah.
Just gonna leave now.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to Ashley in the crew quarters?
I did talk to her. It wasn't like a big conversation. She was just talking about Cerberus.
See, and this is where we had Ken Shepard on a few episodes back. He complained that they didn't think they tried to do Caden justice in the third game, but didn't in the first two, and then they didn't do right by Ashley in the third game. And this is further proof of that, because Caden, I have this long conversation with him about, you know, Cerberus and understanding me now, and did I do the right thing on the Citadel, and like this long emotional conversation with Caden, which I loved having. More about that later. But like, it felt really meaningful. It allowed us to see, we referred to him as our favorite marshmallow on this podcast, because he is.
So perfect.
But like, this is a really beautiful emotional conversation. And I love Mark Mear's tenderness in this moment too. And it just drives me crazy that you don't get that moment, especially since MJ, you've said you identify with her as like a sister and you felt a closeness in one, and they don't seem to be reciprocating it here in the same way.
Honestly, I think this is because of a heteronormative view on like relationships.
Yeah.
And if the character cannot be fucked by you, they are not worth you having an insightful conversation with. Like, that's a very misogynist and heteronormative approach to people and interactions. And it would have been nice if we could have had this sit down and we could have just like talked. But we didn't. She talked about how much she hates Cerberus now. And I find it really interesting that she has transitioned her biases from aliens straight to Cerberus. And I think John and I were talking about it. He said that of all the human characters that we've interacted with, Ashley was most likely to join up with Cerberus.
For sure.
And now she absolutely hates them. And I think it's because she maybe thought about joining Cerberus at some point. And when she saw just how far they would go and how far she was not willing to go, I think she overcorrected for it. So, like, now she absolutely hates them. And also the concept that they're traitors makes her even more on her guard.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. And what sucks is also something that was brought up in recent episodes is they don't really explore her overcoming her xenophobia, which we assume to some degree she has, but like this still extreme mentality of like they're the worst, which they are, but like the way Ashley handles it, it's like there's probably still some scars, there's some issues, but we don't get to explore it unless unless you romance her in the third game as Male Shep, which I've never done. Maybe that does get explored. I don't know, but like from just a friendship level,
which is really unfair.
Right, I agree.
Like you should be able to unpack your biases with your friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if not with your friends, who with?
Right, exactly.
I love this. You're blowing my mind on this, by the way. Just because like I have appreciated Ashley as a character, but at the same point, like I have got rid of her in Vermeer, that to the extent that I never really thought about how powerful that would have been to have a moment like that with her as FemShep, especially to just have that real heart to heart. And I think particularly with how many varied logic trees that they have, if you, not to bring it back, but if you hook up with an alien, that would have been a great opportunity to have a really serious conversation with Ashley about that. And yeah. So now I'm angry on your behalf. So thank you.
You're welcome. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I want to talk about briefly is Javik having an absolute crisis over Edie opposing her creators.
Yes, that was really good. Like, it's clear that he, in his mind, wants to compare her to the Reapers, and I think does in the conversation. And like, and then when she's like, "Yeah, but I don't care about my creators," and he's like, "What? What?"
I am very uncomfortable with the energy we have brought to the studio today.
Yeah, it's just
Javik in a nutshell.
Oh, so good. And like, and this following up with being able to talk to him on the Citadel too. It's just like he's trying. It's funny. I'll save it for when we get to Javik's conversation on the Citadel, but I've come around on him in a not so positive way. Like, I felt one way about him, and now I feel less.
Well, that's because he's an imperialist.
Well, that too. But I'll get to it when we get to that. But
and he believes in slavery.
He sure does. I don't have any other check-ins to talk about. What about you, MJ?
No, that's it.
Okay. So let's head on to the Citadel. Do we want to start with the missions, and then we'll talk about the companion stuff?
Yeah, that's the order that I put it in.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if that would work.
That makes sense. And I feel like the first two are on the quicker side, whereas the last one is going to be the bigger conversation. So the first mission that we deal with is we're told that a wounded Batarian is in the refugee camp.
So we find out about Goric, a Batarian who is known for several terrorist acts, who was wounded in the coup. And a lot of people are saying, why are we taking care of him? He has actually murdered people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, well, in that case, he should be like taken care of and brought back to full health so that way we can prosecute him under the law. So there's a lot of morally gray arguments about him. And Matt, I'm pretty sure your shepherd's backstory does not include a lot of Batarian bias.
No, because I didn't have the part with the Batarian slavers that I think only happens with that one background. So yeah, my bias towards Batarians are the normal kind of indoctrinated, like everyone thinks Batarians are bad, at least among the Alliance. But my shepherd growing up didn't have a personal experience with them, I don't think.
So I chose the colonist backstory, which means that my entire colony got slaughtered by Batarians.
Yep.
Or taken in as slaves. Mm-hmm. And my shepherd was rescued by the Alliance as a result. So I walk into this with some biases.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's important to recognize those biases whenever we do anything that has to do with Batarians. So that's fun. And Gorik has a lot of really valid things to say to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation because it's not just about should we kill this terrible person, right? The nuance of it is more complicated than that.
Yeah. I think this is one of the best Batarian conversations you get in the whole trilogy, because this was another one that is small side quest that it is. I agonized over it. And
I did too.
Because it's like there's the background shepherd bias, which mine was sole survivor, so I've dealt with that one, which I think is that the same? That's not the same.
Sole survivor is where everybody was killed by thresher maws.
That's it. For you. Yeah, that's right. So I don't go into it with that, but at some point though, I felt personally that he was kind of in a delusional state. He's in a lot of pain. He's asking to be. Sorry if I'm stepping over.
No, you're good. No, please. Okay. No, please.
This is why we have you.
Good. Yes. Okay, good. And, that, like you said, there's all the people around that are sort of unhappy with this situation. But in talking to him, he's obviously in a really dark place, and he's asking you to kill him, and he's asking you to take him off of light support. But he's also a terrorist, and you're just in this place where, so for me, the first time I played it, and I think subsequently, I haven't, in my latest playthrough, I haven't got to this yet. But I think subsequently, I've actually chosen the renegade option to give him the sedative and not take him off of life support, because I feel like, one, he's psychologically not in a place to be asking you to do something like that. And two, to have him survive and have his day in court, as it were. But then, like, I remember making that decision, and then you keep coming back to that area, and he's like in that cot, like suffering the entire time, and you're just like, oh, I hate myself. Like, did that, was that there? Can I redo that? Can I change? We talk again? Can I have this option again? Because it just kind of, that decision like literally haunted me for the rest of it. And so it was a hard one for me, and I've always remembered this one. It's tough. If I remember it correctly. Yeah.
This is actually not the first time that we've had to make the decision whether or not to shut off someone's life support. This actually came up in Mass Effect 1. But the difference here is, in Mass Effect 1, it was someone who was not coming back.
Yeah.
It was someone who there was absolutely no hope to revive them.
Yeah.
So I believe we both made the decision to shut off that life support. And for this one, there is hope for him to survive. There is a chance that he could survive. And I just, like you said, he's not in his right mind. He does not have his full faculties in order to make this decision of, I want to kill myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it's a decision that should really be in my hands anyway.
Right.
Because I wasn't directly affected by his actions. And I still think that in this fictional world in which the law does what it's supposed to do, we're assuming that everything will go the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
He will get tried in a court of law.
Right.
And I think that is something that my shepherd believes needs to happen. Like, I don't know. I don't think that any of the times I've killed someone, it has been something avoidable. I think if I've been able to avoid it, I did.
You nailed why I feel so uncomfortable with this decision, which is the fact that that's not my decision to make. At any point in this, it wasn't a mission that I was on. It wasn't anything that I had anything to do with. Like that feels viscerally uncomfortable to just be like,
Yeah.
I really can't make this decision for you. So I haven't, but
Yeah. So I chose to call the nurse.
So it's interesting because I didn't. I shut off the life support. And like, I guess, I mean, my shepherd is coming from a more vengeful place. I made decisions that surprised myself in the second game. Like, I helped Garrus kill, what was it, Sidonis was the character?
Sidonis.
I helped him kill him and let him take the shot, which I don't know that I've ever done before. But there was something about how Garrus felt and how I felt for him, and I thought it would help him heal. And then I told MJ on that episode, I immediately regretted it, but I wonder if it'll change how I approach other things. And it has. I've made harder or maybe not necessarily kind other choices, and I felt apathetic in situations I shouldn't. Now, that could also be partially my current actual mental state, all of actual 2020 and 2021 being off to a wonderful start as well. Like, that all plays in too, because we're trying to play this as close to who we are in that moment as we are, because we can't pretend to be who we were 2 years ago when we started the podcast.
Oh yeah, and Shepard's not who they were 2 years ago.
Right.
Anyway.
So for that, I shut it off because I was just angry that, again, the things that you kind of mentioned already, like we're wasting resources on this. But what actually made me do it is that something that you can miss is if Kelly Chambers is in the refugee camp, she dies during the coup. You find that out when you give the when you trade the medical supplies, which we're going to talk about in a minute. You can talk to someone else in the area, and you find out that she died during the coup. They made choices, and like, it's probably not this Batarian's fault, but I just felt so much anger in that moment that we were protecting someone who doesn't deserve it, that I was like, and he's suffering, and like my brain is like, there's no reason to make this monster suffer, even because that won't bring satisfaction either. I just want this to be done. I want it to be over. I don't want to think about it anymore. And so I pulled the plug. And I think it's a very emotional decision. I think regardless, it's an emotional decision, but both of you sound like you handled it more rationally, whereas I definitely didn't. I made a reactive choice and then lived with it and moved on.
Oh God, am I the rational one in our relationship?
I mean, maybe?
Oh no. Oh no.
Did you regret that immediately, like you did with Sidonis, or were you just kind of like, nope, made the decision?
I made the choice and I lived with it. And I think there have been other choices I've made in 3, and I will make in 3 that I know are coming, that I feel I'm more hardened to, in a way that I am hardened to things. And some of that is absolutely my privilege as a human, actual white person, but even the privilege as a human in Mass Effect, which sometimes they make you feel like you're the minority as a human, and then sometimes they don't, just based on the way people treat you. And so you're always fighting that too. But for sure, I have privilege as a white human in Mass Effect, like I would as a white human in real life, and that's for sure. And so I think some of the non-second thoughts or numbing comes from that kind of privilege too, or just being through hell. And so I pulled the plug and he died and I walked away, moved on to the next thing.
Well, speaking of the next thing, let's talk about the Volus Ambassador. The Volus Ambassador has been recruited by Cerberus, who knows how long ago, and has been helping Cerberus with any of their terrible, violent terrorist actions. But the Volus Ambassador wants nothing to do with this now. He wants so desperately to get out, but they're just like, we know things about you. And he's like, God damn it, that's a good argument. Can't go against you there. But he finally does, because a Turian colony is in danger from Cerberus, and he needs to get this information somewhere. But a couple of bounty hunters pick him up and take him somewhere, and it's up to Shepard to find out where he is. I think that there is a very stark difference between my take on this mission and Matt's take on this mission. Matt, who are the bounty hunters?
Some no-name mook that I never see, and Zaid. And like I didn't remember this was Zaid's mission until I started it, and like I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think Zaid's a great character, but goddamn if I don't love his voice actor. He just, every time Zaid says, God damn it, the way he said, like, I can't even mimic it. The way he says it, like, I love Zaid's delivery of every line. And so anyway, you hear Zaid and I'm like, oh, and like, it's fun to watch Shepard's face, not necessarily light up, but like, I recognize that voice. Like, have a, like, what the, why is, and, you know, the mission plays out, it's not a hyper interesting mission. It's, you know, you rescue the Volus and then you get a choice of whether to push him for the colony or, you know, the Volus bombardment, or if you're a Paragon and Renegade of a high level, you can get both, which I did. And that also may come from having Zaid alive and having Zaid there, because if you didn't have that option, MJ.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I could only have one or the other.
Yeah.
Yep. So Zaid with you intimidates this Volus, and you convince him to do both.
And his loyalty. I don't think you get it without his loyalty either.
So there you go. So, because I have his loyalty as well. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, I remember this mission meaning more, but it could just be because I liked Zaid to some degree in the past. But it's pretty unintrusive. And then afterwards, you can talk to Zaid in the refugee camp, and he has like a couple of like one-liners, like when he was on the ship in 2. Like, you can't have a conversation with him, and that really bummed me out. Like, this is a character from the previous game. I get that he was DLC in the previous game, so like you had to program him differently, like Kasumi, but like now I should be able to have a full-on chat with him. There's no reason. You know he's going to be here. So who was in Zaid? But see, I've never not had Zaid there, so I'm really curious, MJ, who was in Zaid's place there?
It was 2 random bounty hunters that I took out by myself, and because I guess I didn't have Zaid there, the Volus was not compelled to give me both things. I didn't get the Paragon or Renegade options. It was just choose either the colony or the bomb squad. And I chose the colony. It was like, enough people are going to die in this war. I don't need more.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
So,
but that's interesting. I never knew that if Zaid's not there, you don't get the option to do both. That's really interesting.
yeah. Zaid died because I put him in charge of one of the B teams in the collector base.
No. That's so
Which
stressful.
makes no sense.
I know. That's fair.
No sense. Why can't he, like, effectively lead a fire squad?
So I've never felt strongly about Zaid until I Twitch streamed my latest playthrough, and I had the DLC, and one of the people in my chat called him Murder Grandpa, and from that point on, I was like, I think I love him.
That's great. I do like that. He is a cranky old grandpa. But yeah, something that MJ and I had decided is, because we were playing games about consequences, and we wanted to live with our decisions as if we'd made them in real time.
Nice.
We made a commitment in 2. If we lost anyone on the suicide mission, that was it. No rolling the save back, which is something both of us hated because we both do that. Like, if I lose people, I restart that mission. Like, I'm not losing anybody.
Yeah.
And I successfully didn't lose anybody, and I found out in that episode that MJ lost Zaid, and I was like, oh shit. I didn't like. Also, MJ and I've played these games so many times that I kind of assumed, even with that stipulation, we'd be fine. But, you know, so I was really curious about this.
I was trying not to be meta.
Yeah, that's true.
I appreciate that, because I have my Suicide Squad chart thing that I pull up every single time, and I still screwed it up because I was doing it live. I didn't read it carefully enough for the average weight that you get, and I brought too many heavies into my zoo, like, because I brought Garrus, and I think it was either Zaid or Rex, so there were too many heavies with me that didn't bring up the average points to successfully finish, and Morden died. But that's now retconned, because I went back and loaded my save file, and the live stream, I told everyone, and I'm telling everyone on the podcast now, that never happened.
Yeah.
We are going into Mass Effect 3 with a fully survived squad because we can. Yeah. So I respect that. It is hard. It's surprisingly hard, and I've done that mission tons of times, and you just make those little changes and don't realize it can happen.
And it's a shame. It sounds like this mission is even less like anything without Zaid there, which is a bummer. Like that. Like why? There's so many famous and well-known bounty hunters that we've met over the course of the 3 games. Why wouldn't they sub one of them in, or like one of the leaders of one of the other gangs that we've met, who are all really interesting characters? You know, like I don't know. It just seems odd to just have 2 random bounty hunters instead, but it is what it is, I guess.
I like this one because I do genuinely find the Volus entertaining as characters. They're very much like the Ferengi for me, for the Star Trek fans out there. Like they're just kind of, they've got their values and they've got their direction. It's not in line with the Ferengi. Well, it's not far off, but they're very much just like, we're out for ourselves. We got our business. We got our plans. I'm going to do it. They're kind of, Lone Rangers in their own way. But then they end up in really crappy situations, like all the time. And this is one of those.
And it's because they're like so small, and people feel like I can push you around. Yeah. Like I could literally pick you up and throw you, and it makes me sad. I'm just like, oh, that's not nice.
Yeah, they're funny. So in that sense, like I think this one's interesting, and I actually have had a hard time with it because trying to figure out, like, knowing you have Zaid and you can get both, there are still, some consequences. I think you get the Volus, but you end up in the positive when it comes to your fleet count, but you do lose some because of the Turians. And my loyalty to the Turians runs pretty strong. So I do actually have a hard time not just being like, just save them. I just want them all to like me. I want them all to think I'm cool. So just save them all.
When my boyfriend eventually brings me home to meet his father, I would like to not be shot on sight.
Exactly. The logic is sound.
Oh, goodness. Let's talk about the mission from CSEC Officer Jordan Knowles.
So every time I pick up this mission in 3, and admittedly, like I said, this is like my only 3rd or 4th time playing, which sounds like a lot, but compared to all the other times I've played the other 2 games, it's not. I forget where this goes. Like, I know that it's Batarian codes. I will admit that I kind of hate these missions on the Citadel sometimes because there's not a lot of direction of like what console I need to click on. There's no arrow. Yeah. There's like you have to just go to every floor and touch everything essentially, which drives me crazy.
You could just go to every floor and look at the map.
Shush. Look. Sometimes I forget there's a map in the 3rd game. But I forget where this is leading and like it's the finding the Batarian code thing. Like a lot of those kinds of missions there are a ton of those missions that end up meaning nothing other than you did something for CSEC, you get a reward like on your battle page or whatever. Like you get the forces or reinforcements. But the way this one concludes, like I love the arc of this because it goes from 0 to 60 so fast.
It really does. You're just going about your business, like accessing a console, talking to Jordan, just being like, oh, this code was apparently used to, like, destroy a bunch of Alliance ships. That sucks. Let's deactivate it. And then you move on to the next thing. And when you finally get to the last one, you're confronted with an old face. It's Balak, the Batarian terrorist from Burn the Sky, who is going to launch an asteroid into Terra Nova.
Yep.
I think we both let him go.
Yes, I let him go because it was that, or it was let him go and save the hostages, or
kill him and they die.
Right.
So yeah, we both let him go, so that's why he's there now. And I think also him being there means that the codes are used specifically for violence. I think if he's not there, they're used to support Batarians and not to hurt humans.
Interesting.
I think that is the case. That is a thing that I read. I am not certain.
Interesting. But yeah, it's really cool to see with this, like, to have a character, like, because Bring Down the Sky was good DLC for the first game, but like we've all talked about to death now at this point, the first game is not aged as well as the other games. And even that DLC is just, it's more missions. It's more stuff. There's some story, but like, it's just kind of a lot of more stuff. And to tie it back here, like I love the way the 3rd game pulls from stuff from the first game and gives them weight and gives them impact in a way that I'm not expecting. And this does. And like, I have no soft spot for Balak at all, and
why would you?
Right. And so, like, it's just to be confronted with this guy you let get away, but that he chooses to confront you, and he claims that he's going to come back for you or get you in the first game. Like, I love that full circle narrative of this, of something that could have been throwaway that they did a little more with.
I'm really curious because I got that DLC and I played that the first time, but this was the first time playing through it that I actually decided to not let him go. So I'm curious with having that DLC and still having the hostages get killed and killing him, how that plays out. If it's like someone from that, from that squad, or who knew about it, or if they just pretend like you didn't have the DLC at all. So I'll find out.
Yeah, please tell us. My favorite thing about this conversation with him is that he blames Shepard for the Batarians researching the Leviathan of Dis.
Yeah.
And he's like, after you thwarted me on Terra Nova, my people researched the Leviathan of Dis and all became indoctrinated, and then they turned on our own people. I was like, how is that my fault? How is that my fault? I did not hand them the Leviathan of Dis. They did this.
Also, like, we've been yelling about the Reapers for a long time. If you're coming to me to tell me it's my fault, it's like, could I have used a bigger megaphone? Like, what do you want from me? Like, how?
Get off of my dick. I was so annoyed. I took a renegade approach to this guy because I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you and everything you stand for. I hate you so much.
Yeah, I did the same. And we kill him at the end of the conversation, right?
No, if you take renegade, he says, like, I could kill you. I could. And then he walks away. And he's just like, our ships are yours. And then he just leaves.
Oh, yeah. I think it plays out that way either way. I don't think you shoot him. It's just how he reacts to you varies.
There is an option to kill him.
Right. But
that is not, like, the renegade option.
It's just an option you can take, which I did not. I did not shoot him.
And then when Jordan walks up and she's like, do you need me to arrest that guy? And you say, let him go, Spectre Authority, as if that means fucking anything.
To Shepard, it does.
It means nothing. Oh, God. Spectre Authority. You have about as much authority as a cream puff. Can't with you. Any other thoughts about helping Jordan Knowles?
No. I think we just about covered it.
All right, cool. The trading supplies with the refugee camp. How did that go?
I did it. It went well. I used a Paragon action to convince, because you're trading supplies that are not as valuable as the supplies that they have. You're trading military supplies which you need for your civilian supplies which they can use. And I convinced them to do the trade even though it's uneven, because there are literal lives at stake and we're trying to save the world, is essentially the Paragon response.
I was very tempted to be like, just take the supplies. Like, you need them. Here, have them.
Yeah.
But that really wouldn't have been fair to the people that I'm supposed to protect and take care of. I was like, oh, there's more people counting on me than just this. All right.
This is that short-term need to have people appreciate me and like me.
Yeah.
Long-term success.
Like, if I could just give them to you, I would. But Dr. Chakwas would probably be upset with me, and I can't make my mom angry.
Oh, Space Mom.
She will send me to my room.
She will.
My drinking buddy.
I love her.
Yeah, this mission's pretty straightforward. And of course, we all did the Paragon action, so we have nothing to say for the Renegade stuff.
Basically.
Surprise, surprise. The next one, we're going to talk about Conrad Werner in the third game. I've never seen Conrad Werner in the third game. I don't know how,
really?
But I never have. I don't know if I never ran into him.
I have.
But this playthrough, for those along for the ride but may not have remembered, I mistimed my Citadel visits in the first game, and I didn't talk to him the first time. Because of that, I was always a mission behind every time I went back, and so I never finished the conversation with Conrad. So if you don't, then he doesn't appear in 2, and he doesn't appear in 3. So please enlighten me. What happens when you see Conrad here?
Oh my God, I didn't realize. Oh God, Conrad Werner. I think that this whole interaction is the funniest thing that they've done in the whole game.
They just ramped it up from being like quirky to funny to like, what is happening?
It was so wild. So you hear this doctor talking on the phone to CSEC trying to get support because somebody sabotaged all the Metagel dispensers, and also there is someone preaching about Cerberus. Mm-hmm. So you go to see who's preaching about Cerberus, and it's Conrad Werner being like, if Cerberus is good enough for Shepard, it's good enough for us. And I'm like, oh, you dumb golden retriever.
He went from making his own cosplay armor to now joining Cerberus. Dude.
So, when you talk to him, he has this, like, dawning realization from the look on your face, like, oh no, I screwed up again. I definitely messed something up. And also, we have talked about how in the second game, no matter how your conversation with Conrad went in the first game, he always says that you stuck a gun in his face, and that you yelled at him, and that you were mean to him, even if you were nice.
Yep.
So that has always been a plot hole. In this, they resolved the plot hole by saying, I'm sorry if I accused you of pointing a gun at me. You didn't actually do that. I was under a lot of stress.
Amazing.
And I'm just like, you poor dude.
It reminds me of Doug from Up, the dog.
Basically. Like, that's why I called him a golden retriever.
Yeah.
So you continue talking to him, and he's like, I want to help you. I don't know how I can do that, and I'm tired of doing all the wrong things. And Shepard's finally like, I'm trying to assemble a giant weapon that uses dark matter energy, whatever. Can you help with that? And he's like, I wrote my dissertation on that. And at first I thought this was going to, like, result in, like, oh, can't help you. But every time he hits a wall, Shepard's like, I have this. And that solves the problem. And he moves on to the next thing until you finally get all the information that you need. And, like, he actively helps you getting further and putting together the crucible.
Amazing.
So funny.
And it's so great. But wait, there's more.
I was about to jump in if you were done.
Because when you finish, you start talking about thermal clips. And he starts to, like, he's just like, wait, I thought guns just, like, heat and then cool down. And then you're like, no, they changed that. And he's like, why? That's stupid. And I have had this same exact conversation with people who liked Mass Effect 1 better than Mass Effect 2 for this reason.
Yeah. That's
I
good.
was just dying throughout the whole conversation.
That's excellent. I'm so sad I missed that. That's wonderful.
There's so much self-awareness.
It's so good. And then after you fix the Metagel dispensers and go talk to the doctor, Conrad comes over and he spots the guy who, like, put him up to it. And he says, you're under arrest. Like he can fucking do anything. And the guy gives you this dead-eye stare, like, does not react at all, and then draws a gun on you, and Shepard's just like, wait, what? File under things I did not expect. And Conrad, brave as he is, dives in front of you to prevent you from being shot. But, plot twist, Jenna, the waitress we rescued from Cora's den in Mass Effect 1, comes in to save the day. She jammed the guy's gun. And then she and Conrad walk away together. New friends.
Amazing. I've never seen
It's so
any of
cute.
that before. That's amazing. That's excellent.
I left one thing out that I also think is funny. Shepard asks Conrad if he lost anyone.
This is so messed up.
Like, did you lose any family? And Conrad's like, oh, I didn't really have any family. And Shepard's like, but what about your wife? You have a wife, don't you? If you have a creepy shrine to me, I'm gonna be really upset. It's just a poster with some candles. It's very tasteful.
That's awesome. So good.
It was such a good interaction.
That's very good. That's a good
great.
payoff
And, like,
to a very good joke.
It was so good. Like, of all the things that you, like, fucked up, like, you did Jacob the way you did him, but Conrad is where you fix it.
Oh, Conrad is so great. He's so great.
Oh,
Amazing.
he's good.
I love that.
I loved every second of that.
I have heard that if you didn't do Jenna's mission, Conrad does die in that scene.
Interesting.
I do not have proof of this, but I have heard tell that, yeah, if Jenna didn't exist in Mass Effect 1 for you, which it is easy to miss,
Yeah.
I will give it that credit that you do have to have those conversations to trigger it, that Conrad does end up getting shot. So they managed to work in some serious logic trees in that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that I'm still discovering so many years later
I know.
things about this game that I've yet to see or that I have not experienced. It just
This is
endlessly
why
makes me...
when I meet strangers, now virtually, but like especially at conventions who are Mass Effect fans, I'm like, we're all gonna go get drinks and we're gonna share our Mass Effect war stories, because this is like this
Yeah.
is where you learn these things.
Like, it wasn't until
Yep.
we were recording for the podcast that I learned that you could actually save Morden. I always thought that was BS, and then someone told me about the logic, the terrible things you have to do to make it happen. But I was like,
Yeah,
oh my god, I didn't know you could do that. Like, it's brilliant.
bonkers.
It creates the worst timeline, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I've still never done it.
All right, well, let's move on to a conversation that's probably going to be similar but not the same for both of us. But it is, we get to go to Garrus's favorite place on the Citadel. This is your kind of buddy mission with Garrus if you're just friends, and a romantic moment if you are more than friends. And so for me, it's a lot of the same thing Garrus and Shepard have been doing over the course of the games that makes me feel like he really is my best friend, because they treat each other the way I treat my best friends. I'm an asshole to my best friend, but in the best way, like picking on them, giving them shit, making fun of them. Why are you glaring at me, MJ?
I was about to say, like, yeah, you are. Fuck you.
But like, I love how well this relationship is written, that you believe they're best friends. And I love the conversation. There's a great moment where Garrus is talking about, how tough he is and how he's the best. And Shepard can go, yeah, I know. I can see it on your face. And Garrus's response is, raise your hand if you haven't died before. And I'm just like, oh, that's cold.
I kind of wish that you still had that conversation, even if you were in a romance, because that's how John and I talk to each other.
Right. I agree.
Like, if one of us had died before, the other person would definitely throw it in their face any given opportunity.
Yeah. And so that moment is just great. And like Shepard goes, touche. Like, it's the best bro relationship I've seen. It's really healthy, while still broing out in the way that's often depicted in science fiction. And so I appreciate it. But I imagine that, and yes, because I'm sure you'll go through your steps, MJ, I did choose to miss. So Garrus would say that it was...
Interesting.
Garrus would say it's his favorite place on the Citadel, because it was more important to me that Garrus felt good in that moment than me proving how superior I am.
Interesting. I have a different take on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so everyone knows I love Garrus.
Yes.
If you don't know that, this is your first time listening to this podcast and you're learning it right now. That being said, the reason why I love Garrus is much of what Matt was saying. Your friendship is so strong. It's so true. He has been there with you for the beginning. And when you show back up in his life, he does not question you for a second. He is just like, you're here. Everything is right in the world. I back your play no matter what. And that devotion is so important to me as a person and what I look for in a romantic partner. And that's why I always go to Garrus, because he's never given up on me.
Yeah.
And like, in relationships where you get given up on all the time, it's nice to have this fictional boyfriend who never gives up on you. And like, this scene was so good. You get up there and you have a flirty conversation along the way. My conversation with him was vastly different from your conversation with him. He talks about how he's always wanted to go up onto the Presidium.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, have you ever done something that you were told you never could do, or something to that effect? And FemShep says, I've woken up with the Turian next to me in an attempt to like rile him up. And it's just a very cute, flirty conversation. And when you get up there, he says, like, I would be lying if I said I didn't hope that this inspired some kind of mood. And he continues to say, it seemed like you needed time to think about us. And I was just like, that is wrong. I kissed you, like, the second I got an opportunity. I told you that this was the protocol for, like, reunited lovers. I was ready to go the second you were back on the ship. You were the one who needed to wait. So, let's get that out of the way. And I have no problem Well, I have a slight problem as me with the phrase, like, are you ready to be a one Turian woman? Because my answer is yes, because you won't let me have polyamory, but okay. You won't let me have that conversation, so... But there's no one else that I really want to have a relationship with anyway, except for maybe Tally, but you won't let me have that relationship anyway, BioWare, because you're cowards.
I could never. I have this, I love Tali, but I also, knowing that they're the canonical, like, I have this little seed of jealousy in my brain. I'm just like, no, keep them away.
The Shepherd, Garrus, and Tally would make an excellent triad.
Yes.
Be a very good throuple. The snark. The sarcasm. Oh, so good. Also, they would be a board game throuple as well.
That I do not disagree with.
Not even a minute.
Let me see what else. So, my shepherd gets to say, like, I love you. And Garrus doesn't say it back. Which is okay. Nobody has to say things. Nobody has to say that they love you.
That's true.
And I've always been of the opinion of, like, I'm going to tell you how I feel, and you do not have to reciprocate those exact feelings at any point, but you do have to communicate with me how you do feel. That is usually how I take my relationships. And him not saying it back, it's fine by me, like, as a person, like, actually fine. It doesn't bother me. But he does have this very funny, like, the Vince Joker gave me, never got this far, I don't know what to do now.
Amazing.
Too much feel.
And I'm like, well, that's because he gave you porn.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing else.
Thanks a lot.
But then we do get to the bottle shooting competition, and I actually had to sit with this for a minute, because I don't let John win shit. Mm-hmm. John and I play Rummy Cube, and we are cutthroat about it. Like, to this day, I don't think he's won playing against me one-on-one. The one time he did win, we had to, like, bastardize the rules for new players, and it was a whole mess. I was just like, I don't call this a win, because we did not actually follow the rules. But yeah. So, I had to think about it, because I would not purposely let someone win. Mm-hmm. That being said, my shepherd does not use sniper rifles. Mm-hmm. Why would my shepherd be good at this?
Nice.
That makes sense.
I use pistols. So I, as the player, chose to purposely miss because my shepherd would probably miss.
Interesting.
Nice.
So that is how I balance that out. There's some headcanon involved in there, but that was the only thing to make it work realistically.
So I've played this 50 times because this is one of those save files that you write down and never delete.
Right.
It's the comfort play.
It's the comfort play. And I chose to, so I have always played soldier because I like assault rifles and sniper rifles. Those are my two go-to. And so I have had this argument many times with friends of mine who don't understand why Garrus is on my squad if I too am a sniper, but they can suck it because we're bros. So we're going to both be snipers. But I have chosen to not miss because of our dynamic in Mass Effect 1, where we do not let each other slide with anything. And you give each other a hard time. And that's, I think, why Garrus's relationship is one of the most rewarding of the entire franchise, is because you start out vehemently disagreeing about so much stuff, but you hold each other to it. And you eventually, like, it's not even so much that he comes around, it's that you come to respect where he's coming from, and yet you're not going to budge from your line, at least in the Paragon options. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get the competitive thing too, because I hard agree. But I think your relationship has always been one of competition, and Garrus would be disappointed in me if he found out that I consciously missed.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Like, if I was a character who played with sniper rifles, I probably wouldn't have chosen to miss. But I always use a pistol.
Yeah.
I never use anything else. it didn't make sense to me that my character would hit this.
I like that. That's deep headcanon. I appreciate that.
I like that headcanon too. I will only disagree that Garrus is also very full of himself. So I don't know that he would ever figure it out. Like, I love Garrus and he's a dork, but he also is very overconfident when it comes to his abilities as a soldier. And so, like, he would never for a second think that Shepard threw it, which is why I think is the only reason my Shepard felt confident doing it in this one. Like, it was a way of secretly being tender to Garrus when tenderness is not the way they communicate. That's my headcanon.
I do actually agree with that. I think if you aren't in a romantic relationship with him, I think that makes sense. He is so uncertain in terms of a romantic relationship that he's constantly like asking for validation and like, what do I do and how do we do this? And like, you know, like MJ said, like I'm not the one who needed space. Like, please, dude, I was throwing myself at you from day one. But he needed that time. And so I think in a romantic sense, he would be more insecure.
Right.
But in that friendship sense, you're absolutely right. He's like, yeah, suck it, Shep. Who's the one who died, man?
Exactly.
It does work. Yeah.
All right. Well, MJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about Ashley's section on the Citadel with your FemShep?
So this ties way more into what Ken Shepard was talking about them not trying with Ashley at all. This scene, Ashley asks Shepard to join her and her sister at the memorial wall to honor her sister's husband. I think it was her husband. And to, like, be there when Ashley has to say something. And the character that's supposed to be Sarah, her sister, looks absolutely nothing like her. She's, like, a pale shade of white, whereas Ashley is, like, a darker tan. She has red hair and, like, light-colored eyes. I'm like, who the fuck is this? This person is not related to Ashley at all. Like, how can you fuck up character design so badly? Like, just make her dark-haired. At least. It just doesn't make sense.
Have they ever said, though, that they were blood sisters?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
See, my Ashley knowledge is lacking. So carry on.
Ashley, however, is so empathetic to her sister that she does start crying for her sister's loss. And I think that's something that we don't get out of Ashley a lot, is her being actually emotional because it's considered weak and too feminine. And she is a woman in a predominantly man, like, dominated field. Like, she's a soldier, and, you know, unfortunately, it's a very boys club thing. And she's also trying to live up to her father's legacy and her grandfather's mistakes and all of this. So to see her crying is actually very rare, but it does let you see her loyalty and her devotion to her sisters, which is one of the things I love about her. And it's one of the things that I like having her as a friend because she is so devoted, because she is so loyal. And her resistance to you is because she saw you joining Cerberus as a betrayal to the Alliance, the thing that she was loyal to.
Right.
So that's why you have such a hard time with her, because loyalty is just everything to her. And this scene wasn't very in-depth because, again, we're not dating, so...
Yeah, why bother?
Why have depth? I don't even get to really hear what Ashley says to her sister in honor of her brother-in-law, but I just got so hung up on Sarah looking nothing like Ashley. So hung up on it. Why did you do this?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that scene, so I can't even relate on any level. I don't think I've let that play out.
I think I took a screenshot. I'll send it to you.
Well, you're going to have to post it on our Twitter at some point when this episode airs, too, I think.
I'll try.
People will have to see. Or post it on the Discord, and then I will share it. All right. Anything else about that interaction you want to talk about?
It was very brief.
Okay.
Like, I'm glad that I got to see Ashley being vulnerable. I'm glad that I got to revisit how much she loves her family, because it is that love for her family that inspired me to pick her on Vermeer over Caden.
Right.
And if we didn't have that, then I think that would have been a disservice to her character.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe I'll speak on it more once I've actually gotten that far with Ashley in any of the games. Legendary Edition's coming, folks. All right, the next thing is we encounter James in the refugee camp getting a tattoo. First of all, I was one of the people, and I've said this several times on the show, where I wrote off a lot of the humans. I've grown closer to Caden over the podcast. The running gag has been that I'm falling in love with him. More on that later.
It happens.
But with James specifically, he was another human character like Jacob and like Caden that I wrote off because I was like, oh, he's just a guy. Like, who cares? But I spent a lot more time trying to get to know James this playthrough, and I like his character a lot more. Also, because I genuinely love Freddie Prinze Jr. and how he yells at stupid Star Wars nerds online all the time, because those Star Wars nerds are dumb. Don't at me. But also, having played Inquisition multiple times now, I love him as Iron Bull as well. And so I really wanted to see what my Space Himbo had to offer this playthrough. And, like, it's really just, there's so much good. And, like, this interaction as Male Shep is... You know, he's getting a tattoo to have an N7 put on his back because there is no N7 program right now, really. Like, everything's in turmoil. Technically, Shepard's his superior officer now, both on the ship and in the N7 program. And so this was his way of, like, making it official. And, like, what I love about his conversation here is that every other word he goes, ah! Because, like, he's such a soft boy. He's not, but he is. Like, he tries to be tough. And, like, this tattoo is just hurting the whole time. It's a really fun conversation. What annoys me is having done this conversation as FemShep and knowing that he flirts, but knowing that he chickens out. I wish that he flirted with Male Shepard and actually and Shepard pushed him, because I see this as a bro-y queer relationship. And the threads are there, but they don't do it. And it bums me out because after everything we've learned with Caden, everything they did right by Caden, and we have Cortez, like, why not this guy too? It just didn't seem to make sense to me.
They used up all their bisexual quota in Dragon Age 2.
Exactly.
This is hands down one of my favorite random encounters on the Citadel. Just hands down, because it's like, of course you would, James. Like, of course. It's just so in line with his character. It's in line with the way that they've played him. I think it's adorable. It's like his way of showing that because I've also, like, I never saw their flirtation as anything threatening.
Right.
You know, you get those where it's just like, hey, yeah, you guys get it. I've never seen it as threatening. And so it was always just that fun, goofy friendship. But then that was his way of, like, showing that he really cares for his relationship with Shepard. And, like, if this was a different world and a different circumstance, he would do these other things. So he wants to show that Shepard has influenced his life so much that he wants to devote. As someone who is covered with a lot of impulsive emotional tattoos, I'm like, I get you, man. And you're right, like, his, like, constantly being in pain through the whole thing, it's so sweet. And it's where I just kind of went from, like, okay, James, like, I'm like you with Iron Bull and stuff. I was like, all right, you're cool. I like you as a character. I like our flirty interactions. But this was where I was like, thank you.
I also really love this interaction. You, as FemShep, get to make him feel so awkward when he flirts with you and says, maybe you could get my name somewhere, private. And you get to tease him, and he's just like, oh no.
Too far.
That did not go. That did not go where I thought it was. Oh no.
Yeah,
abort!
Since my first playthrough, the playthrough I identify most to was with Rain Shepard, my FemShep. Is when I got to that moment, I didn't feel like my Shepard in that moment. I felt like James, because I'm a flirtatious person by nature. I'm very warm, and I'll say complimentary things, and, like, I try and never make people uncomfortable. And if they're uncomfortable, of course I will stop. But, like, I do flirt a lot, but I've definitely flirted with people thinking, oh yeah, I'm just flirting, and then they kind of start to, like, give me a taste of my own medicine. I go, oh no, I didn't sign up for this. What's happening? I'm failing now. What's happening? Like, I blush easily. Like I very much identified with James in that moment so much.
I mean, who among us has not been James?
Yeah, that's true.
For real.
Whom among us?
Too far.
Once at a bar, I definitely was tipsy and like just vibing, and I was chatting with this girl, and it came up that we were both queer. And I don't remember what exactly was said, but I do remember at some point in the conversation, she was like, "Wow, you're really oblivious to flirting, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm terrible." And then she was like, "Okay." And then she left, and I was like, "Oh, no."
Whoops.
Oh, no.
So good.
That's amazing.
I did bad. No, I do bad all the time.
It's fine. We still love you.
Someone has to, because it's not me.
Is there anything else you want to mention about this conversation, MJ?
Nope. I would not get an N7 tattoo. I would get an Omniblade tattoo, though.
Fair enough.
Nice. I have an
and I will.
N7 tattoo, and I have a Normandy tattoo.
Nice.
So
Nice.
That's
I
amazing.
get it.
The Joker Edie date is sweet and pretty quick, but like you get to essentially confirm. You get to talk to Edie about how, and she tells you how grateful you are that you kind of gave Jeff a nudge in her direction because she's really happy and he's really happy. It's really sweet. I in real life never really liked playing matchmaker because it often blew up in my face. But like when I get to do it in a video game and there are good results, it just fills me with all of the serotonin possible. Like it's just absolutely sweet and lovely.
It was very cute. Joker's just so fucking happy. He's just
Beaming.
grinning.
No.
So happy with his robot girlfriend. There are two things that Edie says that I wrote down because I just love them so much, which was Joker told her that she didn't have to conform to some feminist ideal to please him. And then she, quote, called him on his bullshit.
I love it.
I was just like, see, you're learning how to be human already. You're doing so good at it. Good for her.
Good for her. They deserve each other.
So great.
So the next part I had done, but you
Yeah,
hadn't.
you did it already.
We talked about running into Steve at the bar. A little background for Erin. If you run into Cortez at the bar, this is the opportunity to pursue a relationship with him. But when you make that choice, it's either you flirt with him aggressively or you tell him that you prefer the view, and then it makes Male Shepherd leer at the dancers in whatever the bar Purgatory, and it's gross. And I hated it because that's not what I didn't want to flirt with Steve because I like guys. I just wasn't interested in him, but I didn't want to do that either. And I'm like, ugh, it's a very hetero response. So because of that, I'm really curious what your exchange with Cortez was like, MJ.
I have 3 notes.
Okay.
My notes are as follows. Shots. Oh, he's so drunk. And then, yay, friendship. Those are my notes. Because the conversation with Steve, much like your conversation with Trainer, has no hint of romance. It's just, I'm glad we're friends. Are you glad that we're friends? Great. Let's have a drink.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was nice, and I appreciate it, because friendship.
Yay, friendship.
I added something to the list because I just saw it in my notes and I forgot about it.
We run into Jacob at the hospital at Huerta Memorial. We get to find out how the scientists are doing. We get to chat with him about his partner. We find out that she's pregnant, and he's surprised, like a little in shock, but happy. He does make a comment about how he's going to be a better father than his father, which, like, I appreciate it, but I just feel like that whole thing has been mismanaged from the beginning with Jacob. And also, what bums me out about this conversation is Jacob is a footnote here. Like, you get to talk to him, but, like, Jacob is always reduced to, but after all this is over, we're going to bro out. Like, there's no depth to that. Like, we talked about this in the last mission. Like, there's a friendship there that you can see hints of that I really love between the two of them. And then they just kind of gloss over it because he's just the other human crewmate for Mass Effect 2. And it bums me out because there are hints of it even here when he's sharing his life with Shepard. At least Male Shep is very happy and, like, wants to know. And but the conversation feels kind of flat. I don't know if it's the same with Fem Shep.
Is it just me, or for FemShep, is this conversation incredibly awkward regardless of if you had a romance or not?
It's so weird. Yes, because he was it's weird on so many levels, because I think they introduced him to be like the Caden of Mass Effect 2, right? That he was like your default male human companion.
Right.
And it was very easy to accidentally end up in a relationship with him, to the extent that I barely speak to him in Mass Effect 2. And so because of that, it seems so weird that this is all you get. And it's awkward whether or not you had a relationship. It's like they just assumed, both in Mass Effect 2 and 3, that you would hook up with Jacob. And they never fleshed him out properly, other than giving you a very disturbing loyalty mission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you said, I just don't think they did him any justice. But it's been a very long time since I've had that, so I'm really curious how...
Just at the end of this conversation, it was like, why was this awkward? We did not date.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm happy for you and your future baby, though I am wondering why we don't have contraception that works properly in this year, 2185 or whatever?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, are your space condoms broken? What is... Come on, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, it continues to play into the stereotype we've talked about, like, oh, a black man had a baby out of wedlock and kind of regrets it. That we've never seen that story before. Like, it plays into all of the things we complained about with Mike Kimball, and then even with Chuck Collins in season 2. Like, they reduced Jacob in many moments to a stereotype, and it just sucks. It just sucks.
It does. Also, Bryn wants to name the baby Shepherd, and I'm just like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and Jacob's like, I'm going to talk her out of it. It's like, good. Good. Don't do that.
I do not disagree, sir.
I just want to talk about how weirdly awkward this was. Like, Shepherd seems like this is a person that they dated 10 years ago, and you ran into them at the supermarket, and you're asking them how they are after all this time.
But I legitimately feel bad for people who did have a relationship with him, like in Mass Effect 2, because this is a really unsatisfying conversation. I mean, I don't know how it goes if you do, but if this is all you get, regardless of what the conversation is like what the hell compared to what you get with the other carryovers? You know, that sucks.
It's very strange. Tell me about Caden.
Yes, so Caden sends you a message saying that he wants to meet you for dinner. Believe it or not, there's still a place on the Citadel that sells steak. And, like, what's really... I love Raphael Sabarge. I love his delivery as Caden. I liked it before, but I've really fallen for the performance. Ha, insert your jokes. But I really have learned to like the character on a lot of levels, and also I'm more comfortable with my queerness than I was when I first played these games. I wanted to play as FemShep because I got to be Jennifer Hale, but don't you mistake for a minute, I also knew that I would get to romance Liara, and I was a horny teenager. So, like, let's not get it twisted. But that said, I've really liked Caden through these playthroughs. I feel like, or I was hunting for hints of flirting in the first game because I felt like it was there and they just didn't really go for it. And when we spoke to Ken Shepard, who was a previous guest, he agreed to a degree that, like, there's something there, but they don't give you everything that could be there. And that there have been mods made to try and build that relationship out on the PC version, even though none of them are that great from what I've heard. But anyway, so you sit that down with Caden, and he is immediately gives off that uncomfortable energy that we know he has when he's worried about something. Like, he's commenting on the food and how he can't believe that they get this food here, and he doesn't want to know how they get it. My Shepherd immediately cuts the tension by just going, "Can I get you a drink?" And he's like, "Shepherd, you could at least buy me a meal," like making an awkward joke. And he's like, "All right, what are you drinking?" And so they place their order, and then, like, Caden does the thing that I recognize as an awkward human trying to talk to somebody I have feelings for. Is like, you know, he talks about how he's never really been great at relationships and how, you know, he doesn't even know if he'll find someone. But then he started thinking about it, and he wondered, what if that person was right there all along? You always saw that person. You just didn't see them clearly until some things changed. And Shepard has the option to turn Caden down and just say, "I just want to be friends," or lean into it and say that he knows exactly how he feels. And that's what I did. My Shepherd confessed he had similar feelings, and that, you know, it never felt like it was the right moment. And then it's a lot of awkward back and forth. I mean, it's not incredibly awkward, but like it's
What a fucking rom-com.
it really
I know,
is.
it's such a meet cute.
It's very much a meet cute, and like Caden's like not surprised, but like he's like, oh, and you know, you continue to talk to him about what this means, and you know, I've given Mark Muir a ton of credit, and it's not only because he does the sign off for our show. Thank you, Cameo, well paid for. But also in this moment, Mark Muir's tenderness is unlike I've seen in the rest of the games, and I understand Kenneth's frustration talking about how they did Caden dirty because this moment is so good. We could have had more of these moments. Mark Muir was phenomenal. There was never a chuckle or like trying to make it uncomfortable or like, oh, how gay, bro. Like there's none of that. He's sensitive. His voice softens. It's a tender moment. They share it. There's no kiss here or anything. It's just them being open about their feelings, sharing it, and acknowledging that they want to see where it goes. And it's a lovely, beautiful moment. And I, as the player leading up to this moment, got butterflies.
Aww.
Look, I am, and I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, I'm the person that before I married or even started dating my now current wife, we were on a walk together, and I was trying to tell her I had feelings for her by asking her, if when you have feelings for someone but you're not sure how to tell them, should you do? Saying it to her being the ones I have feelings for. So like I'm that guy. I can put on an outgoing bravado face, but like that's not always me, especially when I'm romantically interested. And I got butterflies talking to Caden about this, and that meant more to me with these games than I think a lot of other stuff on this podcast has, because we make jokes about how I've fallen for Caden during this playthrough, but then when I got to the moment where I could actually lean in, I was still nervous, and it's just a game. Like, I can't screw this up, but I still felt butterflies. I still felt nervous, and that felt really cool. That was really awesome, and is a testament to the writing. And while I'm still angry that I couldn't have this for 2 games, since he's not really in the second game much, like I'm more mad now, and I get it now. Now seeing what I hope Ken listens to this episode because we've talked about him a lot, but he's like the Caden expert. Ken Shepard, shout out to Ken Shepard at Fanbite. But like,
You mean my arch nemesis?
But like, he's so indignant and angry about what they did to Caden, and I see it now because that moment was so beautiful, and I had to wait till past the midpoint in the third game to get it. Is unacceptable. It screws over the people who wanted that moment and deserve that moment. So I loved it. It was great. It was really sweet. And I'm curious to see how it proceeds from here because I've never pursued a relationship with Caden in Mass Effect. So I'm excited, nervous, and it was a really cool moment.
That's awesome.
I have never completed the Caden relationship in Mass Effect 3 because I get very salty when he says, I could forgive you for cheating on me.
Excuse me.
Was dead.
We were on a break.
Our relationship was effectively over.
One thing that I think is really interesting that I've observed and am about to observe because my partner is very queer positive, but also very much a heterosexual cis male, is playing Mass Effect for the first time. And yeah, he hasn't played Mass Effect 3 yet. And I've seen it happen to friends of mine as well, that this is one of those stories where you end up in a situation where you are ninja-manced. That you accidentally end up at a point where it's like you have to be outright rude and you feel bad turning them down because it feels like you had no option up until that point to be nice or be flirty. Yeah. Like you either were flirty or rude. And so for people who are playing, who are legitimately love these characters and who are friends with them and who like them, they feel trapped at a point where it's like, God, like I was just being nice. Like I was just being nice. And that's how I felt with Jacob in Mass Effect 2. And I've seen it happen with friends of mine who are playing as male Shepard who do not want a relationship with Caden, that they're like, oh, But at the same time, I appreciate it because I've ended up in that trap as a female gamer so many times.
Sure.
That, that I'm just like, where I have one male romance option that I have no choice to be with, that it's just like, yeah, get yourself out of this. It sucks, doesn't it? Yeah. you gotta be mean. It super sucks. So yeah. I'm honestly, I don't mean to rain on it, because I feel like your description of that actually gave me chills, and I'm thrilled that you had that moment, and I am sorry that you didn't get to have that earlier, because it is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did that.
It's just because, like, I've had those beautiful moments with other female characters in the game as FemShep and other female characters in the game as male Shep. It just always felt like male Shep got the short end of the stick when it came to pursuing romance. I mean, part of that is an alien that's not actually a woman, but looks like a woman is with a woman. So like, there's a lot of that.
Rules.
There's a lot of that in the first game, but like, what I do appreciate about the Aria relationship is if you are not Ninja Manced and you do actually like her, and I did on the first playthrough, and pursue it, it still yields some really great results in the third game. That said, the final thing we have to do, the final check-in that we have, is with Liara on the Citadel, and both of us are just friends with Liara, which is great. Although technically, MJ did get Ninja Manced in the first game.
Oh, that sucked so hard.
It wasn't so much that I was Ninja Manced, it was I was feeling things out, and then I hit a point where I was like, this relationship is no longer appropriate.
Yeah.
And I put an end to it in one. Like, Liara came to my room to be like, let's bang. And I was like, no.
Whoa.
Like, my friend just died. I'm not interested. And I thought that was the end of it. But in 2, we kissed. And during Shadow Broker, I told her, she confronted me about Garrus. And I was like, I told you we were done. In 1. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to tell her again, and then we were friends, and it was fine. And then at the beginning of 3, we had to have another conversation where it was like, no. No. We are just friends now. Can you please get that through? So that's why I was really excited about this conversation, where Liara does very specifically say, I really hope that we can always be friends. Mm-hmm. Like, essentially, that is her roundabout conversation. She has this really loving description of her mother, Benezia, how much she misses her, the things that she remembers. Benezia loved to wear yellow, which is such a lovely detail to remember. And how Benezia bought her first history book, how Liara got yelled at for digging up the park. And as a result, that's how she got into archaeology. It was just a really nice moment of nostalgia and friendship, and you could say to her, let's keep our relationship professional, but I feel like after everything you've been through, that's such a cruel thing to say to someone who has invested so much time and energy in your survival.
I mean, literally saved your life and saved your body, so yeah. Like, actually got your body for Cerberus. No, yeah, I agree. And I was worried at first, too, that it was going to lean flirty, because male shepherd often leans flirty with some of the female or female-presenting companions, but that wasn't the case here. I got the same thing that MJ did. And it's great, because I like Liara as a character, and I feel like a lot of people only look at her as this, like, powerful kind of, like, sexual object in a lot of moments, and we don't actually get to see her soft and be wistful all the time. Like, I feel like in the first game you do a little, but it's more from an immature kind of young place. And then in the second game, she's this badass, take control, And I like that here she gets an opportunity, even though she's the Shadow Broker, to be soft and talk about her past and talk about Thessia. It's a really beautiful moment. I really liked it.
I think what they've done with Liara throughout those series, for me, I've always seen her as that innocent one from Mass Effect 1, that I think... I feel canonically she's always been in love with Shepard. Mm-hmm. Whatever that means, she's always been in love with Shepard. And so that's something that you've carried through the entire story. And that's why I think you end up constantly having to break her heart. Because even if you do dump her before it gets to that point in Mass Effect 1, she still is always kind of on that edge of wanting to be more with you.
Yeah.
And even if it's not explicit.
Yeah. I think that for me, we talked a lot about in the first season how I felt uncomfortable romancing Liara, whereas I felt comfortable in the past. The male shepherd feels a little predatory because she seems so young and inexperienced, even though she's obviously way older than you by normal actual number standards. But I feel like I understand it better now on the other side, but I still think it's just presented in a different way. We talked about it a lot. The way femme-shep versus male-shep gets treated, a lot of it feels very, sexist in a way that I just didn't see before until me and MJ talked about it because, I'm playing a badass action game where I'm this badass woman, but I'm a guy playing as a woman. So I don't see the things that an actual woman playing would see. Actual woman, whatever the fuck that means. Some person who identifies as a woman. I hate that I just said actual woman because that word means nothing. That phrase means nothing.
We got it. It's fine.
You're good.
I agree that romancing Liara in 1 felt predatory and gross, and that could just be because I like my romantic partners lightly seasoned with some trauma. And
MJ,
she wasn't there yet.
Yeah, that's true. She hadn't gotten there yet.
We're destined to be friends. Just saying.
Awesome. Excellent.
I love it. I have to wrap this up because my husband needs to record a podcast in 10 minutes. So let's get right into Fandom Corner if nobody else has anything to say.
Do it.
Other than I'm so sorry that I kept talking because I'm so excited to talk about Mass Effect. So I appreciate
Please
it.
do not apologize even a little bit.
Okay.
I do not accept your apology.
Okay.
You're great.
I retract it. Thank you.
So the 2 things that I brought for Fandom Corner today are Mass Effect inspired handmade scented soap and a scented candle called the Commander. For the soap, I just wanted to play a quick game. I'm going to read out the scent, and I would like you to guess what character the scent goes to. You ready to play the game?
So ready.
All right. Antique leather-bound books, fruity cocktails, and armor polish.
Is it from all 3 games?
Yes.
Is it Liara?
It is not.
Is it Caden?
It is not. You're both wrong. It's Ashley.
Oh, all right. I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm okay with that.
Here's another one. We're going to do 3. Sharp, fresh yuzu and spiky cactus flower blended with bitters for feminine poetry with a bite.
Jack.
Is it Jack?
It is
That's
Jack.
Good. That's good. Excellent. I love that.
I think Cactus did it.
Yeah.
Trying to look for one that can be a little more ambiguous. White tea, Asian pear, and a touch of fresh cut lilies.
Kasumi.
In a blend of black currant and coconut. It is not Kasumi. I'll say it again. White tea, Asian pear, a touch of fresh cut lilies, in a blend of black currant and coconut.
Okay. I'm going to, not off of the description, but the black currant and coconut, I'm thinking is very feminine description otherwise. I'm going to guess, is it Miranda? Based on her outfit?
It is Miranda.
Wow, you're good at this.
Yes.
You're very good at this.
I get it.
I want to see if we can do one more.
Just to show how bad I am at it and how good Erin is at it.
I don't know. That was I don't know. It was just that black and white gave me that image of, a chick dressed in black and white. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Echinacea, sweet fennel, warm honey, and eucalyptus.
Tali?
No.
Those are all, echinacea is what you take when you're not feeling well. So is warm honey. So is eucalyptus.
My second guess would be Thane.
It is Thane. It's everything you need.
All remedies.
Everything you need for good respiratory health.
Oh, that's
dark.
Rude.
This soap is made by Dragon Sword. We'll put a link to it in the notes. The candle is called Commander. It's sea salt, thermal clips, and lemon.
Awesome.
They also have a Pathfinder one.
Amazing. I think we're going to save the email we got that we did get for the next episode. We'll read it on the next episode in the spirit of time. But I am very excited. Our next episode is going to be the Ardok Yakshi Monastery with the incredible Adam Bailey. I'm so excited for them to come back on, for them to be on.
They weren't on in the
Right,
first
they were
place.
supposed to.
We love you, Adam.
Yep. Yes, we love you, Adam. They were supposed to, and they weren't able to. But we're so excited to finally have them on this time. But also now I want to take a moment to thank the incredible Erin Macdonald, Dr. Erin Macdonald. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was a blast. Please tell folks where they can find you on the internet.
Yes, you can find me most of the time on Twitter at Dr. Erin Mac. That's DRERINMAC. And that's the same handle for me for Twitch, which by the time that this airs, I will be starting my own Mass Effect 3 playthrough. And I have never played the Leviathan DLC, so that should be fun.
Cool.
Yes.
I know.
But this was a delight. You're awesome. Please stay in touch. And we will definitely bring you back for Andromeda and invite you to the Discord.
I can't wait. I have so many opinions.
Yay! I'm excited. If you like what you heard here, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain POV Podcast Network. You can visit us at certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find, as I've mentioned several times in this episode, a permanent invite link to our Discord server where you can join in the conversation and make fun of me for not knowing things.
It's my favorite pastime. Matt and I have some other projects that we work on. The most notable thing I can mention is Archives of the Dragon will be coming back in a couple of weeks, so head over to twitch.tv/Archives of the Dragon, where I will continue to play a punk rock selkie who has no idea what they're doing, and maybe is going to lead a rebellion. I don't know. Spectre and I have to talk about it. Also, my husband is kind enough to let me use his P.O. Box, so if you want to send us letters or cards, please send that to P.O. Box 4288, Dunellen, New Jersey, 08812, and I will actually send you a sticker in return.
Amazing. I do a bunch of stuff, too. You can find it all at www.djstormageddon.com. My Twitch stream is there. My Twitter is there. My Facebook is there. Everything that I do is there, so you can go there.
We'd like to thank Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble, featuring our favorite marshmallow, Caden Alenko. You can find more of his work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram. We'd also like to thank Case Aiken for developing more amazing shirt designs that you can find through certainpov.com or on Teespring. He dropped 2 in Discord today that I'm actually really excited about. One was inspired by Mike Kimball. The other, I think, was inspired by a pun one of us made. I don't remember.
Yes.
I'm sure one of us has said repercussions.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'd like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. And lastly, thank you, Dan Bull, for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And I'm Dr. Erin Macdonald. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Nostalgia is one of the strongest forces in the human psyche and is responsible for the continued existence of some of our favorite fandoms. From the minds behind the Dole Up in Dreams podcast and Isolation Cast Voices from Quarantine, Saturday Morning Confidential takes you on a deep dive into the properties that helped influence the artists and creators of today. So whether you are a Goonie, a Gem Girl, a Digi-Destined, or you just want to return to Oz, new episodes release on Fridays bi-weekly starting January 1st of 2021, and join us on the Wednesdays after the main show for the Serial Killer Radio Hour, where we sit down with the people responsible for the toys, shows, and fandoms that you love. Now you can find Saturday Morning Confidential at certainpov.com/SMCpod or on your favorite podcast platforms. So don't forget to tune in for another deep dive into the files of Saturday Morning Confidential.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.